I thought I would like to point out a drawback of some policies that a lot of people, their knee-jerk reaction when they hear about single bias is that they want some kind of legislation to include singles or solosexuals into a protected class. I gotta bring up a drawback of that. See, part of the reason I had difficulty with one of my landlords that I lived with a few months ago was that he had some religious matters involving. He was very religious, and so he did not see how I could enjoy my life as a solosexual. It became a little bit of a punching bag for him. Plus, he had a big problem with respecting some privacy boundaries. So the point that I would dread having to walk past the kitchen. One day, I spent 2 hours dreading how I was going to leave the house. Finally, I get to work almost late because I would dread going to the kitchen and hear him go off the handles about various political and religious things. And so lately, when I've been thinking about where I'm going to move next, I've been wanting to get to know a little bit about the religious and sexual orientation backgrounds of some of the people that I'm living with. But God, that is difficult to ask because of our culture, right? Not to mention, I would love to be able to work for a boss who was solosexual as well. But you can't ask that. You can't go into a job interview and ask about religion, right? And it just goes to show that some of the best solutions involve people actually being able to openly talk about this, right? More policy is just going to close off that discussion, right? I would love to work in a team where it was half and half. There were people who were in all sorts of sexual orientations. We could understand each other a little bit better, right? Instead of it being like 10 versus 1, right? That's the big problem I run into. So I work at a tutoring center, and oftentimes, I don't think it's discriminatory, but people see each other's needs a whole lot better than they see mine. I often get the leftover hours, right? Whatever's left over and getting called on the last minute. A very frustrating experience one time. My boss had called me on a Saturday, and I went in there for an hour, and he said, okay, you can go now. And I have to drive like 20 minutes each way. And he probably doesn't recognize it. He probably thinks he's doing me a favor, giving me something to do on a Saturday, and doesn't see that just because I don't have to drive a kid to a event or something like that, you know, gasoline costs money to me just as much as it does to everybody else, right? And he doesn't recognize that it takes time to shift back mentally to other activities as well. Not to say that he wants me to be inconvenienced. He doesn't recognize it. That's the thing, right? If I had 5 other colleagues who were in the same boat, it could have played a different way, right? Him asking me, oh, you can go now. The other 5 colleagues probably would have made a stink about that, right? In one way or another, right? Anyways, this is one thing I wish I could do, right? I could go to a job interview. What percentage of you guys are solosexual, right? And unfortunately, the more legislation we pass around that, the more it's going to close off a dialogue like that, right? Unfortunately.